GLC presents a Studio B production, brought to you by the donations of our faithful partners.
Hello, glad you could join me today. Today we're going to be talking about something that maybe you've never really thought about, heard a sermon about, but we're going to talk about the negative emotions of Jesus. When you think of the Lord, don't you always think peaceful, powerful, kind, caring? I do too. But you know, there's another side to Jesus. He had negative emotions, and they weren't wrong. Everything he did the right way. He knew how to handle his negative emotions. Do you? Maybe you're a person that has a real problem with anger, explosive anger. In fact, I believe I have a word from the Lord right now. There's a man, and there's a woman, and there's a teenage boy. All three of you have a difficult time dealing with anger. It gets a hold of you, and before you know it, you're totally out of control. And the Lord's word to you today is, I have help for that. If you will turn to me and let me touch you, you will be different. Also, you need to remember the devil's angry, and he loves to incite people into anger. So you have to be really careful that you don't fail to recognize you have an enemy, and he doesn't like you. And he's going to do whatever it takes to incite you to lose it and maybe lose your life. I met a man one time who had just gotten out of prison. And I said, well, what were you in there for? Because I wasn't judging him, I just wanted to know. He said, I was in there for murder. I thought, oh, great. I said, really? He said, yes. I got into an argument over a $5 bottle of beer, or maybe 50-cent bottle of beer. It was something very cheap. So that guy made me so mad, I took a knife and I killed him. I said, how long were you in prison? 15 years. So that's a pretty expensive price to pay, wasn't it, for having that kind of anger? Maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. The anger that just gets out of control. Another negative emotion people have is self-pity. And people can get to feeling like, my life is always bad, nobody cares about me, nothing ever goes right for me, everything's bad, 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 poor me, poor me, poor me. That's a very negative emotion, and it will pull you down deeper and deeper, and it's hard to get out of it. It's like a quicksand that pulls you down. Another negative emotion is jealousy. God says, I'm a jealous God. You can't have any gods before me. So what we consider a negative emotion, jealousy, God says, I'm that way. But I want to explain the difference to you. As a human, it's possible for you to be so insecure that you feel very, very jealous if anything in your life is threatened. If somebody does better than you, you're afraid your mate is going to leave you, to the point that you just keep their life so tightly wrapped up that they can't breathe. That's not what God's talking about when he says, I'm a jealous God. He cares that he is first in your life. He doesn't want you having anything more important to you than him. And so he's jealous over it, and he'll watch out, and he'll stop things from happening till you get your priorities right. So a negative emotion of jealousy in God's side is seen another way. Well, let's look at Jesus. We look at Jesus, and many people who haven't really studied him very much say, oh, what a wimp. He really just let everybody walk all over him. He could have stood up for himself on the cross. He didn't. In fact, the thief on the cross said that to him. He said, and these were thieves. These were people who had lived bad lives. They had made good choices. They had done wrong with their lives, and they were hardened. And one of them looks at Jesus and goes, if you're the Son of God, help us. Get out. Come on, get us down from here. And many people think that about Jesus. But you know, controlled emotion is one of the signs of the greatest strength you can have about yourself. What do you do with your negative emotions? What did Jesus do with his negative emotions? Jesus came to earth, you know, as a man. He was God, but he became a man. He took on the form of a servant in order to help us get to God. So if he was a man, he experienced every temptation we do. That's what it says in the Bible. No temptation has taken you that isn't common to man and that Jesus has not felt. But he dealt with it in the right way. Where do we see that Jesus had this broad range of emotions? Do you ever think about Jesus laughing? He did. Still does today. Jesus is alive today. Did you know that? He's not dead. He's alive. He's in me. He's in anybody that believes. He's at work in the world today, and he laughs. He has joy. He has peace. But also, he can have indignation, anger, sorrow. He can have almost a feeling of, come on, what are you waiting on? So Jesus had the same emotions that you and I do. But he learned how to express them without sinning. And that's what the lesson's about today. How did he do that? Who did Jesus get mad at? Did you ever think about why did he condemn the Pharisees, the religious leaders, and yet he didn't condemn sinners who were sinning openly? He said to the woman that was caught in the very act of adultery, I don't condemn you. Go and don't sin anymore. And yet he looked angrily at the religious leaders and said, okay, you can stone her, but the first one of you who does it has to be without sin yourself. So what is it that makes Jesus so angry? Maybe angrier than anything else. I believe the Bible teaches it's hard-hearted, phony religious acting, like a religious spirit, just not caring about people, not having compassion for people, not understanding that life is hard. And this is how the Pharisees were. They just wanted to keep those rules, but they didn't even keep them themselves. Jesus said that to them. You're putting all these demands on people, and you're not even keeping them. But they had that hard heart. And that is what made Jesus so angry. There's several occasions in the Bible that we can see where Jesus' anger almost consumed him, one main one. And that's when he was casting those money changers out of the temple. His zeal for God caused him to react in a violent way, surprising everybody. That doesn't sound like a wimp to me. Would you do something like that? I always laugh when I think about people saying Jesus was kind of weak because he was a carpenter. Have you ever known a carpenter that was a weakling? I haven't. They're all strong because they have to carry lumber. They have to deal with heavy equipment. They're out dealing with people in hard situations. I've never met one like that. They're all very strong men. And Jesus was like that. Jesus had a way of taking his anger and let it inspire him to correct action. But he didn't just fly off the handle, go into that church, in that temple, and just start ripping everything up and throwing it out. There's no indication of that. He probably had thought about it. He had noticed it. It had made him angry. Probably prayed about it. Do you ever pray about your anger? Do you ever say, Lord, I am so angry over what has happened in my job or what they did to me or what somebody did to me or what somebody's doing to somebody else. I am so angry. Did you know you can go to God like that? What's your relationship with God like? Do you take your negative emotions and say, Lord, I know this is a negative emotion, but I know I'm supposed to come to you and tell you this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I would like to do. Help me, Lord. Help me, Lord. At the same time, when Jesus went into the temple, he had no regard for, hey, that's my income. Hey, that's my money. Hey, watch out. He didn't care. His zeal for God was consuming him, and he got a reputation for it. What a good reputation. He spoke the word to them. Do you do that in your anger? And I'm not talking about using anger as a way to harm